Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I talk with architect Sara Rothholz Weiner. We talk about how she got into architecture, the types of projects she takes on, and the awesome volunteer organizations that she works with on this week's Who the Folk podcast. But before we talk to Sara, this is the last episode of 2021, where we have talked to an array of Jews doing some amazing things in the Twin Cities. If you've enjoyed this show or other podcasts like The Jews Are Tired, Kumba Hineni, or Spill the Soup, please consider donating to Jewfolk Inc. or buying some of our merch from our shop. The links to both of those are in the show notes. Thank you for all of your support this year. We really appreciate it. Sara Rothholz Weiner, thank you so much for joining me this week and welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. How are you?
Wonderful. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. So think I can safely say in this, our 160-something-th episode of the show, you are the first architect that I've gotten to talk to.
Excellent. I don't think that there's a lot of Jewish architects in the city, though there is a very famous one. It's not
Is
me.
there?
Yes, Leonard Parker,
Oh, sure.
who was my mentor.
You don't consider yourself super well known then?
I am not a starchitect, no.
Starchitect? I've never heard that reference before. That's funny. Is that something you aspire to do, to be a starchitect, or do you just?
No,
Okay.
I don't. No. Well, I'm aspiring to do meaningful community work that lifts people's experiences and gets me engaged in all the many things that architecture can represent. But no, do I need my cover on the magazine? Not just yet. I've been involved with many projects that have won awards and worked with so many talented people. And again, my mentor, Leonard Parker, and my boss was just spectacularly outstanding and a true visionary. So there you have it.
So what was it that led you into architecture?
I started in film theory, documentaries, and loved, the moving camera, the experience of spaces. And I grew up in a family of, people that were lawyers for builders. And so we were always, when we traveled down to Florida, we'd be looking at swamps that would later be, developments for senior living. So I was always kind of peering through the fence, watching construction sites. And I'm a pretty pure Gemini, and I'm a pretty pure, right brain, left brain. So I've got sort of science and art, creativity, strategy, sort of that balance. And I love to learn, and architecture is the perfect, practice for that.
And you talk about the right brain, left brain of it. It really does feel like architecture is it's this melding of science and engineering and math and all of that with art and style, and it's architecture is where those things come together.
It's totally the intersection, but it's more than that, in that it's about people, right? It's about culture and community and policy and advocacy and activism, so it's a real platform for the way that we live our lives. And so that was also really interesting to me. It's also a collaborative art. So you're not on your own. You're always working with a lot of people, a big team, multidisciplinary, and it's a messy craft because every day, as you said, the technology, the science is changing, and today we're dealing with climate change and social change, and so those dynamics, come into play every single day, and the tools are changing. I drew when I was in architecture school, and for the most part, everything is crafted and built, through computer animation.
See, I'm old enough that when I think architecture, architects, I still see like that angled desk, like the big huge desk at like a
Yes.
45-degree angle with
Yeah.
big reams of paper and
Love that. I
rulers
missed
and
that. Yeah, the smell of lead and drawing on mylar was super cool. In fact, the Wiseman Museum by Frank Gehry,
sure.
that was drawn by hand
Really,
on mylar, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about it because of all of the angles.
it's exceptionally cool. So one of the areas you mentioned is social change, whether it's with climate change or other factors. How do those sort of external issues, if you will, again, I feel like I'm minimizing them by using the word issues, but how do those things affect your process, and how has your process evolved over time because of those things?
Number one, the work that we do is within the context of community. And in order to do the work, we need to engage the community for whom we're doing the project. So it's not just the users. For example, I'm doing work in City Hall now, a big renovation. And so we're certainly working with all of the departments, but it's also important to think about the community that uses a public building, how they use it. Is it equitable? Is it welcoming? These are very important things. I do a lot of work for public libraries.
Hmm.
And so, again, we learned during the pandemic that there was a gap. When the library closes, there's a tremendous access gap that occurs in the community. And so it highlights the need to go back into the community and better understand what are the needs of everyone, intergenerational, multiple languages, how we bridge access, how we make this the most welcoming place for everybody. And the best place to learn that is within the community. So our process for discovery, or what we call programming or pre-design, has really changed to best lift voices that are super important to be embedded within the projects.
it it would seem to me that that's like an affirmative choice that you made as a professional to work on those types of projects and to look at it through that lens, right?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough. I've worked on so many kinds of projects. I started my career, I did lots of stores and remodels at the Mall of America and in retail and in corporate and did spas and hotels and school, you name it. And lots of law firms and fancy bespoke millwork details. And now I want to do work that, again, is somehow able to create spaces that are truly welcoming and truly create more equitable opportunities for people. And so that's architecture, and in the civic world.
So what is it about civic projects versus like the law firm or the stores or the retail type spaces that you're really passionate about the civic spaces? Was there an incident that, or again, incident may be too strong of a word, but was there something that happened that sort of flipped that switch for you that made those types of projects really important?
It's a good question. I think it just comes down to the stage that I'm at in terms of seeking purpose, needing to work where there's value intrinsic in the work that we're doing, that it's more than just aesthetically pleasing and functional and hits budget, because we can do all those things.
Hmm.
And we want to bring delight into everyone's lives, but there are a lot of vulnerable individuals who don't have uh, capacity, don't have paths, don't have inroads. and spaces can help to equalize. And so we definitely look for, I mean, it's a funner, more cool thing to do, and you get to learn a lot more. There's less supposition because you'd really do, if we are all sincere about wanting the work to be responsive to our clients' needs and community needs, then we do need to go out and ask questions and frame questions and really listen. And in today's world, it's actually particularly difficult to round a circle of individuals and frame those questions so that we are able to lift those voices and learn something. Architecture shouldn't just be a, cut, copy, paste. It should be around uniqueness, specialness, individual care, individual care really.
So you've also worked in academia. You had taught at the University of Minnesota for a period in the College of Architecture. Did you enjoy that? Were you doing that at the same time as you were working on commercial projects? And is that something you're still doing?
I'm not teaching right now, but I love teaching when I did teach because I finally had this amazing group of people to talk about ideas with. Because oftentimes you're in the office, your head is down, you're working, you're on the phone, you're figuring things out. And then you get to be in a classroom, pose a question to peers that happen to be your students who might come to it with a really different viewpoint, a new perspective, turn it upside down, turn it inside out. And so it's exciting to, again, cultivate a circle of thinkers and activists and creatives to think together to, towards towards a craft. And so I did love teaching. Yeah. And before that, I taught actually at the Science Museum of Minnesota when I was in school. So when I would learn something in school, I would translate it into something to teach, like 9-year-olds at the Science Museum. That was my side gig instead of working in a restaurant when I was in school.
That sounds
So it
like
was super cool.
a way more fun side gig
It was
than
super
waiting
cool.
tables. One of the, I guess, from a current events standpoint, one of the things that you're very involved on is the Art Shanties project that is back this year, or I guess next year, as people are hearing it. It starts in January of 2022. This is super exciting because it's an incredibly fun project and a way to really get into the Minnesota, it's very Minnesotan, and get into winter. I guess tell us a little bit about the Art Shanties project and how you got involved in it.
I just got lucky. I just picked the winner card. Somebody invited me to be part of the jury. I'd attended as many times as I could.
Okay.
I still remember, the early days of Art Shanty. I still remember moving here to Minnesota and seeing a lake with, fish houses on it, and like, what is that? What did people do in there, and what did they do in there all day long in there, and why would they do that all day long in there? And then suddenly you realize, wow, this is kind of surreal, and it's the ice has a sound, and the lake is amazing, and there's a real experience here, and someone captured that experience and began to think about it more like, let's create a village on the ice and just have artists come and participate and just be whimsical and wacky and joyful and crazy. And over the years they've really, really solidified this vision, and this year it will be at Lake Harriet, and it's exciting. There'll be amazing performative art. And of course, the art shanties, which are quite architectural as well. And it's fun.
It's really cool. Hopefully, I guess the big thing is hopefully the lake will freeze so we could have the shanties on the ice.
Well, right on. And one of the requirements this year had to do with acknowledging climate change.
Oh, interesting.
And the shanties needed to, the creators of the fabricators needed to create sled bases on the shanties because last year or 2 years ago it was an issue of getting them off the lake when the lake was not frozen. So
Oh,
this year there is kind of an engineering component to making them lighter on sleds to enable them to both get off and on more easily. So climate change is here and Art Shanty is being responsive, as is it having artists, think about that.
that's really interesting. So it's not enough just to be an artist that, can make it look really
Mm.
cool. There is almost an architectural component to it.
Yeah, you got to solve it. You have
That's
to, I mean,
awesome.
there's content, there's expression, there's aesthetic. Someone's got to build it. And then it's got to, usually on the, what's cool are the applications. It's a range of sophistication of drawings and documentation, and what you're going to get and everything. And a lot of it is just fabulous ideas and a song and a prayer for people to, you know, jump in, get enough qualified people that can help with lots of different skills and build it and make it amazing.
It's really cool. It really is such a great thing to check out. And we will have all the information in the show notes for people who are interested in finding out when it is and where on Lake Harriet to go.
January 15th, do not miss it.
Well, there you go, January 15th. Then you just get to pick the winner, which is kind of a fun job.
Well, it was a big, so I believe there were 20 shanties and then maybe 20 performing artists.
Oh,
So it's an active place. There's going to be froga, like frozen yoga, I don't know, something like that. So there will be things to do and play with. There's always a parade of art cars or art bicycles or whatever. It's just a marvelous, purely Minnesota, embrace the element, get, get your layers on and get out there and have a great time.
Well, it's going to be awesome as always. So yes, we will have the link in the show notes, and details will be coming more available as we get closer to that date. One of the other areas that you're involved in that I wanted to touch on, because I first experienced it this past summer and it was absolutely amazing, is the Franconia Sculpture Garden. Which if you haven't gone, listeners, please go, because it was so much fun being out there. It is north of Stillwater by
Schaefer, Minnesota.
Schaefer, Minnesota. It's north of Stillwater by about 20 minutes or a half hour or so, up 95. It does feel a bit like you're in the middle of nowhere, in the interest of full disclosure, but it is
Wait, in all the best ways.
Oh, in all the best ways. It's fascinating. How did you get involved in Franconia? And
super lucky. I was super lucky.
Okay.
So again, always, sidebar. I'm a always been involved with the artistic community here in Minnesota, whether it's as an artist or I was on the Arts Commission or serving on nonprofit boards originally for the soap factory, which of course is no longer. And Franconia Sculpture Park had a new director, and I heard that she was spectacular. So I called her and said, "Hey, let's go have coffee." And I met her, Ginger Portella, and she was so inspiring. And they were working on a building at the time. I said, please let me know how I can help in any way, pro bono, whatever. And she, she invited me to be on the board. I said, no, thank you. I preferred to, be on a task force supporting the board as an architect. I found that was a better way. But then it's Franconia Sculpture Park with, a brand new executive director and this incredibly bright future and this roster of artists that come and work at the residency from all over the country, both in writing and sculpture arts. And it is just a fantastic place. And it is nationally known, internationally known. It's a destination. It's worth it. Jump in your car on a gorgeous day, or in the winter, we've got an ice rink that's going to be coming back up this year,
Oh, really?
and the sculptures are spectacular. So I wish I don't know exactly how many acres, but it's enough to be able to be wandering through some spectacular sculptures, always changing. There's a building there for you can get a hot drink and a little shop and just enjoy yourself. So it's immersive. It's fun. And with COVID, everybody wants to have an activity, a fun family thing to be outside.
Yeah.
And it's something that's enriching, where you'll see something different, you'll be inspired. It's a treasure.
It was just so great to be out there, and it was early July. It was really hot. We got up there early, and really, walked around and got to experience a lot of it. And yes, the building, the visitor center / event space, because it really is
Just
very
opened, yeah.
multi-purpose, is great. So were you
Mhm.
involved in that
No,
process?
I
Oh,
came on
okay.
after all the brilliant people ahead of me. I'm the sweeper, I just came in and just helped once, the building was open. And it's exciting. They do classes for kids throughout the summer, which were amazing. They do intergenerational sculpture making classes. So it's a marvelous place for hands-on learning. There's just so much innovation that happens there, and there's really it's key to the mission to bring people under the tent, to really bring lots of different kinds of artists to participate in the platform that is Franconia. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, so it's interesting between like art shanty and Franconia. It's really using that artistic side of your right brain, left brain.
Oh, it's a little wackadoodle. I mean, these are like just outstanding places. Art shanties, it's a whole nother level. Franconia, just has a little more structure around it. But art shanty is, that's a community driven piece. So it's cool. One of my neighbors is building one of the pieces right in their garage, so I get to see it like happening. It'll be fun.
God, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a joy.
It really is. It's fun when you can watch art come together like that. Really, like the whole every step of the process, and then you get to see the final thing out on the ice.
Well, yeah, and you also actually feel more creative when you're there. So anything that sparks creativity in us as well as we're experiencing it, you say, "Oh, I never thought of that," or "That feels good," or "Wow, the scale," or you want to just be out and in it. And anything that just say yes and go experience things. And I think that Art Shanty and Franconia are sort of that model.
How does your work in those volunteer capacities? How does that help with your professional life and how you do your job day in day out?
Yeah, I I don't know that I separate, I don't really draw the pizza pie of slices of all the different departments of my life. Everything is definitely kind of a big mishmash. I'm very fortunate at the firm where I work to lead something that's called Community Impact, which enables us to do both pro bono and low bono work for nonprofits.
Mm.
And so that's enabled me to meet lots of interesting people, be out in the community, learn about needs that are in the community, come back to the firm, gather my colleagues and friends, and say, can we rally to help this group to do some research or some programming or some sketching or what have you to get them wherever they, have defined that they need to be. So that's definitely a piece of it. But again, architecture's around. It's about people. It's in the world, and it's important to have capacity and have a skill. And but mostly just be compassionate or empathetic or just have a drive to do more. And so I think that that's sort of embedded in me. And so I've spent a good amount of my time kind of seeking opportunities to expand whatever it is that I get to do at work and serve the community.
So I've heard of pro bono. What is low bono? I've never heard that term before.
When you get, a little fee,
Okay.
maybe it's really just a small little fee to cover a little this or that.
Okay.
But not full services.
Nominal.
Nominal.
Okay. Never heard of that before. Well, Sara Rothholz Weiner, thank you so much for joining me. Last two questions before we let you go, though. First, what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Oh. I'm a Passover girl through and through. I do love Passover. I love changing it up, and I love being traditional, and I love bringing out all the ritual items that have been in my family forever that you get to bring out and strike memories. And it's an inclusive one. It's the one, it really invites everyone to the table around really important conversations, and super meaningful. And I love it. I love it. It's my dream to write and kind of illustrate my own Haggadah. So I'm working on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. That's very cool. And what is your favorite Jewish food?
Oh, jeez. Toss up, I think, between probably a good knish. And I like the ones that you get in the street in New York or Yonah Schimmel, and then maybe a pickle, a really great pickle. We used to get pickles at Gus's in the Lower East Side, and when they could buy them out of the barrel. So I definitely have a penchant for a good pickle. It's super hard to find.
Incredibly hard to find. Both of those in town, no question. No, listen, we end with the really, really hard hitting stuff. So, well, Sara, thank you so much for joining me this week. It was fascinating to get to talk to you, and we will have links to Franconia and Art Shanty in the show notes for people to get more information. But Sara, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Lenny. It's been fun. Enjoy.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.